many people just want the information. You know, they're just curious and say, "Oh, that's interesting," you know. But that seems to be my experience with people. They're oh, isn't that interesting? You know, and their faces go blank because they think that you're a good storyteller. Or where do you get all this stuff? And they don't even care where you get it. It's just a good story. So people just, I don't know, they're just complacent, I guess. Mm-hmm. People just don't want to really investigate what's going on. They're happy with their 9 to 5 and strive for the money and the next vacation. And well, what's out there is so exciting and so vast. It's amazing. But nothing compared to what they can do with their own life now. I really do respect those storytellers who have put together so many marvelous tales of fun and adventure. I have always loved Peter Pan, Superman, and Green Lantern on the Earth, which, by the way, is the strangest place to live compared to the real universes. People want to accept the hardest of all situations for themselves, but this does not have to be so. Of course, the Earth is what it is, but as one learns about all the real possibilities which supersede this dusty round world, they begin to see where their heart and being always be. All of us need a confirmation of something really great because we are more than worth it. So it's time to dream big. The ancient texts have their value as one learns to see the real side of them in relation to their own identity. The business part of their identity is something else. Mr. Jacob, climbing the ladder into his decided heaven, gives people a great view of the possibility for themselves. This is what all real experience is about. Mr. Jacob's experience has nothing to do with religion by the church. They simply took the idea and marketed it to the public. But here is where it gets sticky, and that is, just like Gerald or Crone Corporation and Durwood of Atomic Erg, they have taken something of value and then propose it to others with no real experience of their own, or they are simply gathering people to them for the sake of popularity and support. Pretty words do not make a real life for anyone. Only real experience does, and it is individually confirmed for themselves. The real guides do not back those who are taking advantage of others. Besides, the great reality is always new. Everything else is always outdated. When Paul Twitchell left the place, he assigned the next 2 caretakers to handle things until I was to come along. Well, lo and behold, they decided to take things into their own hands, and so today they are a yawn to the real guides who only stand with the new wave. Then there's the experience of Mr. Joseph, who interpreted dreams for the Pharaoh at the time. I would say he led a very interesting life and had some fun while he did. He seemed to have a very popular, and he got along well with almost everyone. Here was a time in history where people were paying attention to something other than their daily routines. At some point, the church got wind of his experiences and decided to use them for themselves. Here again is a confirmation about a unique individual and his contribution. But of course, the conglomerate ruling factors come along and take what they will. As I provide this journey to the real freedom for the public, they will begin to see all the steps involved and how things and ideas have occurred to this day. Why would it be that Jacob and Joseph were the ones having these experiences? It's really very simple. They were open to them and being taught by the real guides from the unseen worlds. Of course, the church decided that their gods, which provided all the information, the gods who are standing in the clouds and ready to toss lightning bolts on those who do not comply, the church has always used their fear-driven tactics to get people to pay attention and contribute as they pass the plate around. Many people have beautiful experiences with the real gods, but they have no real knowledge to go by. And so this becomes my real adventure, to provide the real guidance and a real education for real survival. Robert Louis Stevenson gave credit to his dreams for many of his stories. During the night, while his body slept, he would slip out and roam the astral and mental worlds as he was being directed by the boys to collect the information he needed to put his literature together. When people learn to see what's happening from the real side and not just the outer shell this world is, they will have a huge understanding of how life works on all the various levels. With all the modern technology of sorts, the various governments of this world have secretly studied dreams and the movement of a person's awareness to the other levels. Most of the governments of the world have their own psychics and seers that they rely on to see future events, and mainly to spy on others. Remote viewing, better known as astral projection, is used all the time by the military and many local police agencies. But of course, they do not tell the viewing public this. I like the TV show The Mentalist. He's a fun character that says it like it is. While his co-workers stand around looking officially onlookers to those unique individuals who really make a difference are mainly all the same. They love their self-restriction considerations of everything they have come to know. Life is a great adventure, not a Sunday school regime, but the great love affair with all that is. And so, as Paul started his teaching for all the beginners of his time, I am providing the new nowness and the greatest adventure ever. I'm sure we have a few ideas about that.
Well, I'll go back to this Tartarian Empire and the extent that the controllers go to manipulate people's perception, and this is like part of what they did also was to create the countries, for one thing. Well, these are the people that came in when they got rid of the Tartarians, they were living more naturally with the environment. But then the controllers came in and they created countries. The kings and queens in Europe, the monarchs there was one controller for all of those. They were just puppets. It's like the President of the United States was a puppet for the controllers. Well, the monarchs in Europe were also. And the countries and the divisions and the borders were meant to divide people and separate them, just like Trump is doing here. He's polarizing people purposely. And so this is one thing. Another thing is the language. Languages are separation too. And Tim, is that you, rustling papers?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This language, too, is in this empire, they use hieroglyphics. They use pictures, like symbols, just like the Chinese do. Well, then they created the alphabet, like 24 letters or whatever, to make it so-called simpler to learn and to communicate. But the example was given, we'll say you have like, you want to explain electromagnetism. Well, you can say electromagnetism, but it doesn't define it. It just, you still have to see what it's about. But in hieroglyphics, the pictographs, they will explain what it is. As you identify it, it'll explain it at the same time. So they had a different reality there and how they communicated with each other. So it's things like this that the controllers are very, very good at. They're good social engineering people. They can actually pretty easily, the way people have been indoctrinated to this day, it's pretty easy to control them in a way, especially when you have the media to reinforce everything. And even if it's not true, even if it's right in front of their eyes, if the media says it is true, well, most people think it's true. And look at how many people still believe 9/11 was the terrorists blew up the buildings. There's still people that believe that because that's what the official narrative is. So it's creation is an agreement between people. So the controllers have created something for their benefit, basically a creation that most people look at here, but it's a creation for their benefit and for their control. So in a way, you could just wipe out everything you ever thought or believed in or see, and it's pretty much a lie, or it's not really of any value except for reference of sorts, and just start from your real awareness. Just start being real, start listening, paying attention to your real side experiences, sing the new you, and let life show you what is real, because here everything is distorted. This is a simulator. It's not what you think it is. That's one thing I constantly see or experience with this is it's not what I think it is. Not that I think, but it's not the new presentation. It's never what I consider it to be. And again, I'm not considering it to be anything, but it's always a surprise. It's always new. It's always something that I wouldn't have imagined even. It's so clean and pure and fresh the way it comes in. the way, the recognition comes in, that it's quite an adventure, the whole thing.
Life is an adventure. It really can be. Modern day psychologists study the ancient manuscripts of dreams. They want to know what takes place with a person in their sleep and also during their waking hours. So they are prepared for those people who are ready to go over the edge. Of course, the information that they have acquired is always outdated and from a secondary source. But no matter, they have the impressive looking office and they dress really high class, so a convincing outer front is all that is really needed. Money seems to be no object for those who want someone to talk to, and I would say it does sound like a fun experience to meet someone new who likes to charge one the whole lot for just listening to them. And yes, there are so many documented cases where people are helped and feel very satisfied as they once again return to their passing dream life and end up knowing really nothing about real freedom, just like everyone else who's standing in line at the office door. The real gods already have the answer for every situation possible, but the authoritarians and their gods would disagree. Sigmund Freud was an interesting fellow during his time and highly respected for what he presented. Anyone who purposes something so convincingly and gets others to agree, no matter what the reality of it is, of course, he's a genius. Freud and Jung had their own areas of interest when it came to dreams, and to this day, many study what they have created. I admire anyone who has the real courage to do something others will not even consider, such as Evel Knievel and all the outlandish daredevil motorcycle stunts that he did. But what he did, did he really contribute overall? And so it is with Freud and Jung. They did scratch the surface, but they didn't pay attention to the real gods for the most part. I must admit, it is a rather difficult transition to perform as one has experience in the other worlds and then tries to coordinate a meaning for them here. But then again, many people are on an emotional and mental level, and so they never really have reality to compare with. It really does take a particular person to provide a real service, as Paul Twitchell and Rebus Towers are doing.